coming on the air tonight with intense weather, putting some 60 million people on high alert with dangerous wind and baseball-sized hail on the way after a dozen reported tornadoes touched down in just the last 24 hours. We're live with what to expect after dark tonight. Then the new sex assault allegations against the former California congressman who just submitted his resignation letter. What we're learning about the investigation into Eric Swalwell. Plus, the new details just into us about the moment a woman allegedly tried to kidnap a toddler at knife point at a Nebraska Walmart. And the landmark legal fight against Meta and what phase 2 of New Mexico's trial against the company could mean for kids. We are one-on-one with that state's Attorney General on that and with an update on their criminal investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Then new reports of controversial plans to hike train fares during the World Cup, a move that's already irritating both fans and commuters. That's coming up a little bit later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air with some 60 million people bracing for dangerous wind and hail after more than a dozen reported tornadoes slammed the Midwest overnight, and more may be on the way. Take a look here. You're seeing one of those funnel clouds from last night in Iowa, South Dakota, and Kansas. And in that state, officials say at least 3 people have been hurt. You see the wreckage today, a house completely torn up, just a few walls still standing. Look at this, and a trailer ended up flipped in the water as well. Look at Wisconsin, where a fresh round of storms is expected to bring 60-mile-per-hour winds. A roof ripped off of a church, trees collapsed onto cars. We have team coverage tonight. Larissa Abreu is standing by with the forecast, but I want to start with Maggie Vespa in Chicago, and it's going to be potentially an intense night and an intense couple of days, Maggie.
Yeah, Hallie, for sure. It's like another bullseye with this next round of storms rolling in. We're talking about overnight tonight, potentially concerned about more tornadoes, more hail, more severe winds. Right now, I got to tell you, the story in Chicago is the heat. It's in the upper 70s after being in the 50s over the weekend. And we're seeing, as you saw in that video, the kind of severe weather that comes with those massive temperature swings. Kansas is where we're seeing a lot of the most severe video. And you just showed some of that in your intro. It's insane. Like dozens of homes, businesses completely destroyed, torn into pieces. A lot of it centered around the city of Ottawa. That's about an hour southwest of Kansas City. And again, you talked about those injuries. The local sheriff there saying 3 people that they've learned of with minor injuries at this point, thankfully. And we're obviously keeping tabs on any more reports as they come in and as they dig through the wreckage. But thankfully, it's been limited so far. You go to Wisconsin, again, more of the same. Wisconsin in particular, a lot of down trees, a lot of down power lines. I just checked outage numbers in that state in particular, more than 17,000 people without power. Again, Wisconsin's one of those states, along with kind of the upper suburban Chicago area overnight tonight, that's in the bullseye once again. So we're concerned about kind of a rinse and repeat into the overnight hours. Then we go to Michigan, and this is something that our Midwest team is really watching closely. There are already flooded areas and flood watches in effect in that area, like low-lying roads are already impacted. But then you go to the Sheboygan Dam. Northern Michigan, crucial dam around Sheboygan, Michigan. It is, at last check today, officials say about 7 inches from overflowing. That's a historic level. And by the way, it's 7 inches from overflowing after rising 6 inches in the last 24 hours. And they are expected to get more rain in that area. If this overflows, we're talking about potentially catastrophic flooding. Residents in that area, Hallie, have been told to be ready to evacuate if and when needed. A state of emergency has already been enacted. Officials are saying this is not normal. This is not what we see every spring. Again, that's a hardened part of the country. Those people are used to severe weather, especially winter into spring, and they're really, really concerned about that. So, Hallie, I mean, you've seen the images. You've seen the cross-section. It's a mess across much of the Midwest.
Yeah.
And it's far from over, as you can tell.
That's exactly right. Maggie Vespa, thank you for being there. We'll look for updates from you, I know, as the system develops. Appreciate that. Let me bring in meteorologist Larissa Abreu now from our NBC station in Miami. So good to see you, Larissa. Walk us through where the storms are expected to hit tonight and especially what people should be looking out for tomorrow.
Hallie, I'll tell you what, unsettled weather across several portions of the country. 2/3 of the country going to be dealing with some aspect of severe weather, whether it's flooding or the concern for damaging winds as well as tornadoes. You can see that that threat extends from places like Oklahoma City through the South Central over into the Midwest. And some of these storms are firing up as far east as places like Pittsburgh. So this is widespread activity that we're going to be tracking here weather within the next couple of days because this is going to be a several-day severe weather threat. 64 million people are in its way with a few strong tornadoes possible. Some of the bullseye area right here across the Midwest, some of the cities included in the bullseye: Des Moines, Chicago, Milwaukee, extending east into Detroit. But let's not forget Oklahoma, central portions of Oklahoma, back towards Nebraska, where we could see damaging hail over 2 inches in diameter. And any one of these thunderstorms are capable of producing 75-mile-per-hour winds. So certainly damaging wind gusts. And then we're going to see this threat begin to shift off towards the east as we approach our Wednesday. Morning storms will be tracking across the Great Lakes and widespread activity as far as the peak of severe weather. This is going to happen early in the evening of Wednesday. And you can see once again that shaded orange area where we anticipate for a moderate risk for those strong storms. Impacts remain the same as today. We could see anywhere between 5 to 10 inches of rain in some spots. In addition to that, damaging winds, a few tornadoes will be possible. And then the biggest concern will be that 2-inch hail threat across portions of the Midwest, portions of the South Central. And this will extend as far east as places like Pittsburgh, places like State College in Pennsylvania, and all the way east into Allentown, Pennsylvania. So this is going to be a wide-reaching storm with several days of unsettled weather across those locations, Hallie.
Larissa Abreu, glad to have you with us. Thank you very much for that look ahead. Appreciate it. We're watching all things developing with weather here at home and overseas. We're also watching potential developments there with word that a new round of in-person peace talks between the U.S. and Iran could happen as early as this week, according to a couple people familiar with the negotiations and the president himself in an interview. But, of course, tensions are still incredibly high in the region. The U.S. says today its partial blockade turned around 6 ships leaving the Strait of Hormuz already, with some 10,000 troops there to keep that blockade going, a blockade China doesn't like. Look they called it dangerous and irresponsible. We've got team coverage tonight. Courtney Kuby is standing by, but I want to start with Keir Simmons, who is live for us on the ground in the region in Saudi Arabia. Let's talk negotiations here. With Israel and Lebanon, according to the State Department, agreeing to hold now direct talks. What does this signal to you about the potential for peace talks in Pakistan now that those get sort of reignited after collapsing over the weekend?
Well, I think that you need to solve the Lebanon piece if you're going to try and solve the Iran piece, because I know from the weekend where I was at those talks, Hallie, that the Iranians and actually the Pakistanis too were not impressed that the ceasefire did not include Lebanon. But on the other hand, the US delegation really were concerned that a ceasefire in Lebanon would effectively leave Hezbollah, which of course is an Iranian proxy, able to operate, and that was not something they want to see. And then, of course, the Israelis absolutely opposed to that idea. So I think these talks today have been important. I think we shouldn't underestimate the tension it's causing in Lebanon. What's happened is there appears to be an agreement that there should be direct talks between the Lebanese leadership and the Israelis, and that there should not be Hezbollah able to influence Lebanese politics. But of course, that's not the way the Iranians will see it. And all of that is a way of saying, Hallie, that I'm not sure that what's happened today necessarily makes it more likely that there are going to be talks between the US and Iran in the coming days, as President Trump has suggested. That being said, what's clear to me from the weekend is that both the US side and the Iranian side don't really want to go back to conflict. And so the question really is, how much are the two sides prepared to compromise? Because it's not just, of course, about Lebanon. It's also about Iran, the Iran nuclear program. It's about those proxies. It's about the way that America's allies and partners in this region, the Arab countries, have been treated by Iran.
Keir Simmons. Keir, we're glad to have you there in the region. Plenty, as you have laid out, for you to watch. Let me bring in Courtney Kuby. Okay, so give us the gut check now on what's actually happening with this blockade. What are you learning? What can you tell us?
So as of the first 24 hours, now a little bit longer than that, but there haven't been any shots fired. There's been no confrontation. We're not aware of any boardings. I just checked before we came out here as well.
But wait a sec. When they say they turned around 6 ships, that just was like a big stop sign? No.
I actually asked the same thing. There is no large stop sign. That would be great visually. It's communications. happens via radio. In every case, all 6 of those ships were told, you're in violation of the blockade, you need to turn around, and they did, and they went back through. I think the real key here is people are talking about this as a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, and that's actually not true. It's a blockade of the ports. Yeah. So they're actually letting the ships go through the Strait of Hormuz and then stopping them, communicating with them on the other side once they get out towards the Gulf of Oman.
Are you getting a sense here of the footprint? If it is, is there going to need to be a bigger footprint there to enforce this? Do they feel like they have the right personnel in place? And how long do they think this is going to go?
I asked the same question. Yeah. Nobody can tell us how long this is going to go. I mean, at a minimum, through this ceasefire and these peace talks, however long those go, maybe another 2 weeks, or another week and a half, I guess now. But it's not really clear. There's more than 100 fighter aircraft, surveillance aircraft. There's more than a dozen U.S. ships there. There's a Marine contingent there. So they have enough that if this starts to go south, basically, if in fact some ships refuse to turn around, then they can start boarding them. But the officials that we were speaking to about this made it very clear. I said, so what's going to happen? Are you seeing the Iranian Navy or the IRGCN, anyone acting up? Are they firing drones? Are they sending out any of their fast boats? Anything like that? They've seen nothing like that of significance. But I said, if that happens, what will you do? And they said they have the authorization and the authority to use full force to stop any ships if they do not turn around when ordered to do so.
Okay, the big stick as opposed to the carrot. Courtney Kube, thank you very much. I know you'll keep us posted with any developments there. Let's bring it back here to Washington because we've got action over at the Capitol with 2 members of Congress officially resigning today in the face of staffer sex scandals. We've got Democrat Eric Swalwell, Republican Tony Gonzalez stepping down this afternoon. What does that do? It avoids the potential that they could have been voted to be expelled. They could have gotten kicked out by Congress. Now, 2 different people, right? 2 different scenarios here, but let's talk about the case of Eric Swalwell. In that instance, a new accuser has come forward with serious allegations against Swalwell, saying he drugged and assaulted her in 2018.
He raped me, and he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died.
An attorney for the woman you're seeing there says they will file a criminal report against him in Los Angeles. Swalwell also faces a separate sex assault investigation in New York. Now, Swalwell acknowledges what he has described as mistakes, judgment mistakes, essentially, but he denies strongly those sexual assault allegations against him. And his attorney, in a statement late today, writes, you see it here, that these accusations are false, fabricated, and deeply offensive, calling them a calculated and transparent political hit job designed to destroy the reputation of a man who spent 20 years in public service. Remember, Swalwell just dropped out of the race for California's governor not long ago. Julie Sturkin is standing by with The View on Capitol Hill, but I want to start with Camila Bernal, who's live for us in L.A. What else do we know about the developments related to this new Swalwell accuser and the criminal investigation into him?
Yeah, Hallie, these are truly disturbing allegations. And this woman saying that she essentially thought she was developing a friendship with the former congressman, saying that she had 2 encounters that were social encounters. And it was that 3rd encounter where she thought it was going to be sexual, but ended, or excuse me, social, but ended in the hotel room where she says she was drugged and choked and said she essentially felt like she had died. But what's interesting here is that the accuser says that because of the statements that Eric Swalwell put out, it sort of motivated her to come forward. Her attorney telling me that she felt that those had been minimized, like the accusations had been minimized. And that's part of the reason why she decided to speak out, despite the fact that it took her so many years to do so. And she said that during the time in 2018, she felt like she was just destroyed and she would cry every single day. Here's part of that impact that all of this had on her. Take a listen.
It had a profound impact on my mental health. I self-medicated in an unhealthy way. I did not want to live anymore. I cried all the time for years.
And they also say they have evidence of all of this because she spoke to a therapist. They say she spoke to other people about the alleged crime here. And they say they have text messages of that relationship and that photo that you showed earlier that proves the relationship as well. We know they already went to the LA Sheriff's Department. It's unclear exactly how long it'll take for the Sheriff's Department to figure out what their next steps are and whether they are going to launch an investigation, whether this goes to the DA. So it can take weeks, maybe even months before we see some sort of action. But what they want in this case in particular is that criminal investigation. The attorney saying losing your job is not enough. There has to be more accountability here, Hallie.
Camila Bernal live for us there in California, in LA. Camila, thank you. Let's bring you here to Washington, where Julie Sirkin is posted up on Capitol Hill. You know, part of the pressure that built on Swalwell over the course of the last 48 hours was some in his own party saying that they would vote to expel him. Historically, expulsion has been a fairly rare step, kind of until recently for lawmakers, right?
Yeah, it has been. There's only been a handful, essentially, of expulsions in Congress's history, but this is reverberating in ways that I don't think lawmakers even expected it to. It took 3 days, essentially less than one business day, for Eric Swalwell, his political career, to essentially implode. He stepped out of the governor's race, he resigned from Congress, and now the attention goes to who knew what when. Is it really possible that people weren't familiar with his behavior, even some of his closest friends? I had an opportunity to question Senator Ruben Gallego about just that today. Watch. In the beginning, you said when you first heard these rumors a few weeks ago, that's when you called him. Then you said you've heard these rumors for years. So which one is it, Senator?
So I heard rumors of him being flirty.
And that wasn't an issue enough for you to not trust him to watch your kids or be close with him?
Because, you hear this, and then when you're close to somebody and you know his wife, you see this. You see that relationship. You know that, like, it maybe just isn't true.
Have you asked him about it prior to the few weeks?
I asked him about it a few weeks ago when it started coming up online.
So obviously a little bit back and forth there from Gallego, is now trying to distance himself from Swalwell and obligations around him because, of course, he has higher political ambitions. But certainly this is something, Hallie, that I don't think is going to go away just because Swalwell resigned.
Julie Sirkin live for us there on the Hill. Jules, thank you very much. Also tonight, the Department of Justice says it's reviewing what it calls politicized prosecutions, accusing the Biden administration of unfairly targeting anti-abortion protesters in the department's first ever so-called weaponization report. It's coming as the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, the president's former personal attorney, faces pressure to pursue prosecutions against the president's political perceived enemies. Laura Jarrett sitting down with Blanche today. He says Americans should be happy about how involved the president is with the department. Watch.
Is the president calling the shots, or is the acting attorney general calling the shots at headquarters?
Well, I suppose I would ask you to define calling the shots, because the president is we can read Article 2 together of the Constitution. It puts the power of the executive in one man, and that's the president of the United States. So he is my boss, and every president is the attorney general's boss from the time the Constitution was enacted and the time that an attorney general was selected. And so who is calling the shots? I mean, I think everybody in this country knows and has known for 250 years that the president of the United States, when it comes to the executive, calls the shots. And any idea that there's a cabinet secretary out there, whether it's the attorney general or the secretary of state or the secretary of war or commerce, that gets to, quote, call the shots, they have not read Article 2.
Let me bring in Laura, who's fresh off that interview. She's joining us now. Laura, I know you asked Blanche also about a topic we covered a lot on the show, and that is the Epstein investigations. I'm going to get to that in a second, but let me pick up on that line of questioning with him. You're sitting in front of somebody whose predecessor was just basically fired, in part based on our reporting, for not doing enough to do what her boss, the president of the United States, wanted her as it related to these political prosecutions. How did he navigate that with you, that idea of the pressure? I mean, you hear him there talk about, hey, calling the shots, but tell us more about that piece of it.
Yeah, and Hallie, that's one of the things I wanted to tease out with him, because by all accounts, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, his predecessor, did everything that she was asked of, right? You think about all the prosecutions. You think about that tweet where he called on her to investigate his political adversaries, and what do you know? They all get indicted afterwards. And so that was one of the things I was trying to tease out with him. And yet when you look at their record of all of those prosecutions, they haven't gone so well. Take a look at what he said here. Some of the cases, at least in the most controversial cases, the ones that get the headlines, the one that the president appears to care very deeply about, the record has been tough. For both Comey and James, the indictments get dismissed. The indictment against Congressman Adam Schiff that he called for never gets off the ground. The probe into those 6 Democratic lawmakers, the grand jury declines to indict. A judge in D.C. tosses out a subpoena for Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. That's bad news for the department, no?
Well, not bad news for the department. It means that we're working hard. I mean, look, for one, some of those indictments were dismissed on procedural grounds because of the judge found the U.S. attorney wasn't properly in place. So that's not a finding, a factual finding of whether there was probable cause. A grand jury returned indictments in those cases. Some of the investigations you spoke about are just that. They're investigations, and the fact that the media picked up on them and drove a narrative. For one, it's not necessarily true, and for two, it's their investigations.
Hallie, it's interesting. I asked him, how do you give the president bad news, right? In all those cases, how do you tell the president the grand jury declined to indict Tish James 3 different times? And it's interesting. He said, I just tell him the truth. I give him the good news. I give him the bad news. People have known him a lot longer than I have. But I said, it's interesting to know you have managed to stick on. You see all of those demands for prosecutions. But through it all, Blanche has managed to stay on. Remember, this is the president's former personal defense attorney, now occupying potentially the highest position of the Justice Department.
Certainly in that role in an acting capacity. And you went back and forth with him about this idea of the Department of Justice and its handling of the Epstein case, the document release. I thought it was fascinating that he said to you, like, hey, it's not that it's case closed. He said people have this perception that we said case closed. It's actually that we don't have a case. I mean, he was pretty clear that they feel like they can't bring anything criminally, even though there are, I think, many in that orbit, survivors and others, who would suggest they've got to at least take a look.
Yeah, and he really pushed back against the idea that they haven't produced enough documents. He pushed back against the idea that the door is closed. He said, my door is open. You have evidence. You have a victim. Please come tell us. But he also, Hallie, mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell. Remember, he interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah. He sat down with her last summer. And I said, as you talk to the president, she only has a hope for a pardon at this point to get out of prison. And he said, I don't think that's on the table for her, Hallie. We'll talk about that more next hour.
Laura Jarrett, come back. Thank you so much. Really interesting stuff. We're glad you were able to bring that to us. Thanks. Coming up, much more to get to here on the show, including some of the new images showing who the feds are looking for in the shooting of Offset. Plus, the superstar is set to be inducted into the Hall of Fame for all things rock and roll. Who's in, who's snubbed? That's next. Officials in the Bahamas say they're calling off the search now for that American mom who went missing there sometime in the next 48 hours. The military says they've been, in their words, unsuccessful in the search so far for Lynette Hooker ever since her husband, Brian, says that she fell overboard while they were boating in the Bahamas over Easter weekend. Police have been holding Brian Hooker in custody to ask him questions to see if they might charge him, but he was released last night. And today he's sitting down with our Jesse Kirsch one-on-one. Watch this.
Did police ever explicitly ask you if you hurt your wife?
Of course.
What did you say to them?
I said I've never harmed Lynette, and I never would harm Lynette, and I want to find Lynette.
Jesse Kirsch is on the ground for us in the Bahamas. Jesse, tell us more about this conversation and what happens after 48 hours from now.
Yeah, so within the next couple of days, the military, Hallie, tells me that they are going to likely be suspending their search efforts here in the Bahamas. To be clear, that does not mean that the police would stop searching. And we know from my conversation with the police commissioner yesterday that she says they plan on searching for as long as possible. And she says they are still hopeful that they can find Lynette Hooker. But it just speaks to the fact that this has been going on for well over a week now. And the police telling me that really the only piece of hard evidence of anything they've come up with is a flotation device. And the part of the lack of hard evidence you can imagine would have led to them releasing Brian Hooker, not charging him. But the police say he is still a suspect. As for my conversation with him, because this is an ongoing investigation, his attorney advised him against going into the specifics of what he says happened on Easter weekend. But we did talk about his relationship with his wife in the years past. We talked a little bit, as much as he would go into, about what happened then And we also, as you just heard, talked to him about what his conversations with police have been. Here's part of my conversation with Brian Hooker.
I don't think I've ever been apart from her in 25 years for this long. I don't like it. She wouldn't stop, and I'm not going to stop.
And you see Mr. Hooker becoming increasingly emotional there. That is where our interview wrapped up, Hallie. But again, we talked about any number of things as you played there. If police asked him if he hurt his wife, I asked him about their marriage and reports that there was some volatility there. Any number of things. We're going to continue to report this out, of course, across all of our NBC News platforms. Hallie.
Jesse Kirsch live for us there in Freeport. Jesse, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, in just the last few hours, former University of Michigan football coach Sharon Moore learned he will not go to prison. A judge is giving Moore 18 months of probation on 2 misdemeanors related to an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. You might remember prosecutors dropped felony charges of stalking and home invasion after Moore took a plea. His next hearing is in October. Number 2, Harvey Weinstein is back in court with Manhattan prosecutors trying him for a 3rd time on rape charges. Weinstein has pleaded not guilty to the accusations by Jessica Mann. Remember, a jury already convicted Weinstein in this case back in 2020, but a judge overturned the verdict. A second attempt ended in a mistrial. This retrial could take up to 6 weeks. Number 3, newly released surveillance photos show some of the minutes around the shooting of the rapper Offset. We told you about this one. He's now out of the hospital and doing okay, but you're seeing some of the images that we're just getting in now. Police have detained 2 alleged suspects so far, where they think some of the other people you're seeing in these pictures may have something to do with the attack on Offset. This was down in Miami not too long ago. If you have any information, FBI says give them a call. Number 4, new video in just the last hour, a freight train derailing in New Jersey. Our station there got their chopper up, took some video here. The good news is no reports yet of anybody getting hurt, and you obviously see some of those crews responding, spraying water over this derailment. Number 5, some of the most popular stars of the 80s and 90s have just found out they're going to hit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Phil Collins, Sade, Luther Vandross, the Wu-Tang Clan. I guess that's 90s. They're 90s, early 2000s maybe. They're all in this class. A couple of snubs, stars like Mariah Carey, Lauryn Hill. They're going to have to wait till next year to find out if it will be their turn then. We shall see. Coming up, is there a mega merger on the horizon between 2 of the biggest airlines in the world? A reality check for you right after the break. Plus, what it took to save this cat from the tracks of a busy train line. That's next. So you may have heard about this, this idea. If you fly, if you travel, it's probably been in your algorithm over the last 16 hours or so. The United CEO reportedly mentioning the idea of merging with American Airlines to Trump administration officials. United and American coming together. Really? Maybe not really. Here's the deal. Bloomberg News reports that the CEO, Scott Kirby, floated this back in February, according to people familiar with these conversations. To be clear here, we've got no information at the moment that the 2 airlines are in talks. So this is just what it is. Both airlines aren't commenting. We're out to the White House and haven't heard back yet. But a move like this, if it were to happen, big if, could face roadblocks from regulators, from unions, could cost you more, et cetera. Tom Costello is following it all. Do you know what's so interesting here is this may totally be a non-story. And we don't usually bring you on. Normally, we're looking through the rundown and we'd cross you off and say, well, make time for another story. Let Tom get on with it.
Off.
Very rarely, but it happens. But in this instance, we thought it was kind of important. This is kind of everywhere. This headline rocketed around the internet. We need the reality check. Okay. We have no word that they're actually planning or pushing for a merger.
Correct.
Right?
I got to tell you, I think it's one of those headlines that went rogue.
Interesting.
Kind of like Sarah Palin. It went rogue. Saturday Night Lights version of Sarah Palin, right? It came out that Scott Kirby, who was the CEO, is the CEO, of course, of United Airlines. According to Reuters and Bloomberg, he was having a conversation with the president in which he raised the possibility of, what about us merging with American? We are led to believe kind of a casual conversation.
Okay. But wait a second. Does the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company ever do anything casually?
Well, I think if you're in the White House and you are thinking, I wonder if he would block a merger. I wonder if DOJ would block a merger. And before we spend a whole bunch of money with lawyers and bankers trying to make that happen, maybe we should get a reality check. So we don't know where that conversation went. We have no idea. By the way, within a few days, the war had started with Iran. We have zero evidence that America and United are actually merging. But here are the numbers here. By the way, you may be surprised. American is actually the biggest carrier in the country right now. So a combined, American is in terms of passengers, it is. So if we look now here at the revenue here, right, we'd be talking about $114 billion if these two combined. Separately, look down there. United has about, what is that, $59 billion in revenue. American has about 55, almost $59 billion in revenue. But here's the big caveat. American is loaded with debt, just loaded up. United is doing much better. Their stock price is in much better shape than Americans. So the question really becomes, is there room, is it time for any sort of merger activity in the airline industry? And then what about a mega merger? Here's the Secretary of Transportation last week talking to CNBC.
Is there room for some mergers in the aviation industry? Yeah, I think there is. What impact does it have on competition? What is it going to do for the consumer and the pricing of the consumer? What does it do for us to be competitive globally?
And Duffy went on to say, listen, a big merger is going to bring big questions about what would happen to airline pricing, what would happen in these key markets where this would create just a monolithic airline, right? Newark and LaGuardia and Chicago and Miami and Dallas and L.A., right? They would have just a chokehold on those markets. So would they have to divest some of their assets, some of their planes, some of their routes? Listen, that's all pie in the sky at the moment because to our knowledge, there is no conversation between these two.
So interesting, but also so hypothetical.
I think that's the bottom line. Okay. I would not be worried about your airline points yet.
Cool. Tom Costello, then I won't, if you say so. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Also tonight, let's take you to the West because we've got some developing news here. The man accused of trying to kill one of the biggest names in tech, right? Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI. Remember the Molotov cocktail situation? That suspect is now being apparently held without bail after not entering a plea during his arraignment in just the last hour, according to the Associated Press. The suspect is accused of throwing that Molotov cocktail at the house of Altman in San Francisco on Friday. You see the pictures here, the moment that he allegedly hurls it right at the gate. It's like that, the circle at the top. You're going to see it now. It's next to the gate. You see the flames. Suspects, the police say that he also went to OpenAI's headquarters. Prosecutors say he wanted to set that building on fire. According to court documents, the suspect had written things about being anti-AI. He's now facing state and federal charges. That's after there was a separate attack on Altman's home over the weekend, a possible shooting, according to the police. Doesn't seem like the two things are related, so Molotov cocktail situation separate from the shooting situation, but all of it obviously putting OpenAI and Altman on edge. Morgan Chesky is joining us for more on this. Altman had responded, right? I mean, he put out a picture of his family. He basically is trying to make this personal plea saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, whatever you think of AI, don't take it out on my family.
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. We heard from Sam Altman. He put out that photo with he and his young child there, trying to humanize himself, his family. And we also heard that same sentiment expressed by the district attorney in San Francisco, saying regardless of your personal feelings towards AI, towards the growth of that industry, certainly an act of violence, the way in which we saw it carried out on Friday by this individual who's now been taken into custody and charged is certainly off limits in every aspect of the word. Now, we do know, according to the AP, Hallie, as you mentioned, that Daniel Moreno-Gama, this 20-year-old Texas man, was in a courtroom just a short time ago. We're hearing from his public defender. The AP is reporting that he's saying that his client was suffering from a mental health episode and has been, quote, overcharged. He has a direct quote I'd like to share with you here that just came in within the last few minutes, saying that it's unfair and unjust for the San Francisco district attorney and the federal government to fearmonger and to exploit the mental illness of a vulnerable young man by turning a vandalism case into an attempted murder, life exposure case to gain support of a billionaire, and to get political points at the expense of true justice for everyone involved. We do know, Hallie, according to investigators, that they recovered multiple pages of a document that they believe was written by the suspect, Moreno Gamma, in which he expressed extreme displeasure with multiple aspects of artificial intelligence. And he also had listed the names of some top execs at AI companies. That's just part of the investigation being built against this 20-year-old man that authorities say drove from his home in Spring, Texas, a suburb of Houston, all the way to California to carry this out. Hallie?
Morgan Chesky watching all of it for us from there in L.A. Morgan, thank you very much. Also tonight, one suspect is dead. A child is recovering after a very scary incident at a Walmart in Nebraska, where police say somebody tried to kidnap a toddler at knife point. Investigators are still trying to piece together what happened here, but they say officers approached the suspect outside the store. She had a knife. They said drop the knife, and that is when they say she slashed this 3-year-old across the face. At least one officer then opened fire. Fortunately, that little boy, that 3-year-old, is expected to be okay. Kathy Park is covering this. She's joining us for more. How did this happen? Do we know any other details?
Hey there, Hallie. Yeah, this is just a troubling story. It's an incident that happened early this morning, shortly after 9 a.m. local time. And according to police, that child and a caretaker were inside the store at the time when, according to authorities, the pair, they were approached by this woman. And according to police, there is apparently no sort of relationship between the pair, the caretaker, the child, and the stranger who essentially approached them, pulled out a large knife, and then essentially had the child pointed, the knife pointed at the child, and the suspect, the woman, told the pair to go outside. And according to authorities, shortly after that, after they went outside, apparently there's video of this suspect, this woman, slashing this child across the face. It didn't take long before authorities arrived on the scene, and essentially at least one officer fired their weapon and killed the suspect near the grounds of that Walmart store in Nebraska. Still so many questions, Hallie. Right now, the suspect's identity, this woman's identity, has not yet been released. We don't really know the relationship between this woman and the caretaker and the child, but really a really scary moment. Officer-involved shooting, and one person is dead. But the good news is, out of all of this, that young boy, that 3-year-old, aside from that injury, we do know, according to authorities, that he is expected to recover. Hallie?
Kathy Park, thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our southern bureau, Florida officials want people near Naples to get out ASAP. Look at this huge wildfire down there. It's burning like 1,500 acres. Right now, it's pretty contained to a state park, so there's no reports of anybody being hurt, but they want to take every precaution here. Officials have said it's getting windy, and that could push it into places where people actually live, where there's houses. Out of our Northeast Bureau, take a look here. Police on Long Island rescuing a cat from the train tracks. It was stuck. It somehow crawled between like an electrified part of the track. You see it there. Officials had to cut the power to pull him out. Garfield, that's the cat, is now safe and sound and recovering at a local shelter. That's good news. And out of our DC Bureau, life imitating art after the winners. So there's like a heated rivalry lookalike contest. The winners, Shane and Ilya, like the people who look like, they're now dating in real life, they say. That is just, we'd love to see it. They're not putting a label on it yet, but they told our team they're still getting to know each other, but both of them, these winners, are having a good time. Perhaps a la Shane and Ilya on the show. We'll see. Little everything here on the show. Coming up, though, our newsmaker is joining us, the New Mexico Attorney General, after his win in a landmark phase 1 of a trial against Meta. What he now wants the parent company of Facebook and Instagram to do now. That's next. So New Mexico's landmark legal fight with Meta is not over yet. Both sides will be back in court in about 3 weeks for phase 2 of that social media trial, after a jury decided last month that Meta misled users about the safety of its platforms and enabled child sexual exploitation. They ordered Meta to pay $375 million in civil penalties. Now, Meta says it previously said they respectfully disagree with the verdict. They do plan to appeal. But this next phase now is focused on the potential that Meta takes some action here. A judge shot down Meta's push to delay the trial. We've just heard from a company spokesperson about that. In a statement, they say the state is asking for big changes that could affect all New Mexican parents and teens, including their ability to access our platforms for important information and connection. They say our ask was nothing more than a reasonable request to take the time to get this right. New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres is joining us now. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being here with us on set here in Washington. I know far from home, but you've had a series of meetings today with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, right?
Yeah, the verdict we just had in our case against Meta, $375 million judgment, has really galvanized, I think, attention on Capitol Hill around what needs to happen to better protect kids online.
Let's talk about what needs to happen, because Meta's now got to pay a settlement, but there's also this injunction, and this is coming up in just a couple of weeks in early May. Talk us through that.
Yeah, we have the second half of our trial. A lot of people thought that the case was over. It's actually not over. That part of the trial will be focused on the public nuisance claim that we have. We'll be making an additional argument to the court about the need for more money to remediate the harm that this company has caused for New Mexico's children. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about specific changes to the platform.
Let's talk about those specific changes. Things like new regulations banning addictive features, limiting screen time, the idea of kids' accounts have to go private by default, blocking adults from messaging minors that they're not connected to. What is the enforcement mechanism for some of these things as you look ahead moving forward for the impact that this could have?
Well, ultimately, like any other company, they are subject to the jurisdiction of the court. They do business in New Mexico, and the court is going to have the opportunity to order real age verification, as you said, changes to the algorithm, and potentially the independent monitor that we've asked for, somebody who can come in and ensure compliance with all of these structural changes that we think are necessary to better protect children.
And you think that this could actually have more of an impact, this second part of the trial, than the financial piece of it, right? On Meta specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. This goes to the heart of the way that they do business. It disrupts the motivation that they've had to place profits ahead of safety. It gives the court the opportunity to step in and try to enact some of those common sense reforms that, frankly, the company should have enacted long ago. They were listening to their engagement team. They were listening to people who were relentlessly focused on growing the user base. They should have been focused on safety first. And this is an opportunity to correct that and to have a court really bring in outside experts to drive fundamental change in that space.
Meta would argue, as you know, that they have made changes to try to make the platform safer for specifically kids and teens. I wonder how you see, when you talk about accountability, when you think about that, the role of parents in this process, too, when it comes to their kids being online.
Well, we have never made the claim that parents don't bear responsibility. They do. They need to be aware of the harm. But it's hard for parents to make an informed decision when you have a company who spends as much time and as much money as Meta does trying to cover up the truth, trying to mislead people about the safety of their products. And so everyone has a responsibility, but the responsibility starts with the people who build this product and put it into the marketplace.
So look ahead now to early May when this kicks off, when this second piece goes into effect. When you're walking out, when that part is done, what do you hope has happened? What is a victory to you beyond simply the legal victory?
Well, the victory that we are looking for is a clear and unambiguous signal from the court that change will come to the platform, that the experience that our kids in New Mexico will have on this platform will be fundamentally different. And I think that will have a cascading effect, because if we are able to build a safer platform for our kids, that's something that will translate and could translate across the country and around the world.
So talk to me about that. Have you had conversations with your counterparts in other states? What do those conversations look like?
We have over 40 AGs, Republicans and Democrats, who have filed similar actions. They are all very interested in how the trial unfolded, the evidence that was presented, some of the arguments that were made. But there is a shared commitment, and I think a renewed sense of energy that we can finally bring about change through the court system. Now, that doesn't take the burden off of Congress to take action. We've had legislation stalled here for a number of years, and my hope is that what we're having in terms of messages delivered by juries and everyday citizens will actually translate into legislative action.
Before I let you go here, I know that you're also investigating an issue that we've covered quite a bit on this show, and that is the investigation into Zora Ranch, what used to be known as that, Jeffrey Epstein. You've asked the Department of Justice for the unredacted files, the unredacted documents, in order to help you pursue your potentially criminal investigation. Have you received those yet? And do you think you're getting the level of cooperation from the feds that you want to see?
We've been engaged with the Department of Justice about access to the files. At this point, we're still working through that process. We haven't seen the files yet, but we are working through a normal process. And my hope is that as a law enforcement agency reaching out to another law enforcement agency, that we get, full and cooperation at this point. It's a little early to see, but we remain hopeful that we'll gain access to all the information because we need that access in order for us to conduct our own investigation.
And what's your sense of a timeline on your investigation? Any idea? It's
going to be very complicated and very time consuming. As you know, this, happened so long ago, and there has been a lost opportunity to a certain extent with victims' access to witness statements and the like. But we are going to do everything we can to get to the bottom of what happened there, follow every lead, no matter how uncomfortable it is or how long it takes. And most importantly, we need to center the voices of victims in this process. We need to create an opportunity for victims who have not felt safe and comfortable to step forward and talk to us. I want people to know, anyone who is impacted by these crimes, that we want to hear from them, we want to talk to them, and without them, we can't move this thing forward.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us on your trip here to Washington. I know you have much more ahead of you as well.
I appreciate it.
Sure. Still to come, some of the new alarm bells being sounded about how much it might cost to get to the World Cup matches this summer, let alone watch them from the stands. Our Stephen Romo's posted up with commuters in New York City. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Hallie, yeah, a lot of people not liking that reporting out today about how much a train ticket could cost during the World Cup to get here to Penn Station. And that's not the only change that could be on the horizon for commuters. We'll tell you what else is getting them heated coming up.
We are just a couple of months now from the World Cup kicking off all across North America. We've been telling you about, ticket prices. People are like, what the heck? They're really expensive. But now there's an extra cost that could end up making it even more, perhaps, a bitter pill to swallow. According to The Athletic, the Jersey train service is planning to charge more than $100 a ticket to go from New York City to MetLife Stadium for the games. And if you're like that feels expensive. That's 7 times more than what it usually costs to get there. In just the last few hours, the governor of New York said the World Cup should be as affordable and accessible as possible. Charging more than $100 for a short train ride sounds awfully high to me. That's not happening on the MTA. But the World Cup host committee for New York and New Jersey tells us prices for match day travel haven't been finalized yet. So maybe they won't be that expensive. But it's still not the only New Jersey transit concern over the summer. The influx of fans could block reportedly regular commuters from Penn Station, which is the country's busiest transportation hub. Other cities are laying out their plans. Boston's going to raise mass transit prices to as much as $95 for people to get to games there. Listen, people love soccer. Do people love shelling out this kind of money just to go see soccer? Stephen Romo is at Penn Station for us. This isn't just like a New Jersey, New York kind of thing, right? Necessarily. But for people there, they're already kind of annoyed by the whole thing, even if it doesn't happen.
Oh. Hallie, oh my gosh, that is an understatement. A lot of opinions on this, as you can imagine. People not thrilled hearing that price tag. They're also not thrilled hearing that daily commuters could be blocked from Penn Station during the World Cup, which will last 6 weeks, starting in mid-June. So that has a lot of concern, even though it's not been finalized. Just that initial reporting has a lot of people upset over this. And we can take a look at the numbers here. New Jersey Transit saying it expects to transport 40,000 people to and from those 8 matches in New Jersey, including the final. And that is to clear security checkpoints at the station. The fans will also have to hold special train tickets produced just for the World Cup so that they will be allowed to go at a particular time to Penn Station. As for those $100 ticket prices, well, reported by The Athletic, we did get a response from New Jersey Transit about this. They said in a statement that ticket prices for match day travel have not been finalized. However, as the governor has clearly stated, the cost for the 8 matches will not be borne by our regular commuters. We can confirm that the overall cost of the agency is approximately $48 million for those 8 matches. So quite a bit of money there, making the case that these higher costs will help offset that amount. But the writers we spoke to, they seem to hate the idea of pretty much all of this. Those price tags for what they normally pay about $12 for, and also for the likely inconvenience that this could cause. Here's what they had to say.
We're used to prices going up pretty consistently, but that's just such a huge jump. That's just unbelievable.
Do you think people will still pay it?
I think they're going to try and not pay it.
I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, I feel like, it's going to hinder people from getting there. People that can't afford it aren't going to be able to make it.
Now it's tough because you need a rideshare or a train to make it out to actually watch these matches. And as you heard it there, some people saying they're not going to pay it. We'll see if this ends up getting finalized and how they plan to make it there.
It's so interesting, too, Stephen, because it's New York. We talked about Boston. The World Cup's being played. It's a huge, huge America's event, North America event. And there's other cities that are going to have to navigate this, too.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing Boston. You mentioned the $95 price tag for Boston getting in, and New York Governor Hochul saying that MTA won't be doing that. But I was interested in seeing Senator Chuck Schumer calling on FIFA to cover these transportation costs for all host cities and states affected. Not heard a response yet of that from FIFA, but we'll see if that ends up happening, Hallie.
Stephen Romo, much to watch. Thank you very much for being at Penn Station for us. Appreciate that. That does it for us for this hour, but we've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air tonight with intense weather, putting some 60 million people on high alert with dangerous wind and baseball-sized hail on the way after a dozen reported tornadoes touched down over the last 24 hours. We are live with what to expect after dark tonight. Then what we're learning about a possible new round of peace talks between the U.S. and Iran, when they could happen even as tensions hit a new high in the region. Then the new sex assault allegations against the former California congressman who just submitted his resignation letter. What we're learning about the investigation into Eric Swalwell. And the man who threw a Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's home, making an appearance in front of a judge just in the last couple of hours. We've got those new updates from inside the courtroom. And new details just into us about the moment a woman allegedly tried to kidnap a toddler at knife point at a Nebraska Walmart. We've got that coming up a little bit later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air with some 60 million of us bracing for dangerous wind and hail after more than a dozen reported tornadoes slammed the Midwest overnight, and more may be on the way. Look at some of these funnel clouds. This is Iowa. Look at that. South Dakota. There's Kansas in the upper left. And in that state, officials say at least 3 people have been hurt. You see what it looks like today. This house just torn up. There's a trailer flipped in the water, too. Take a look at Wisconsin, where a fresh round of storms is expected to bring 60-mile-an-hour wind. The roof ripped off of a church with trees collapsed onto cars. We've got team coverage tonight. Larissa Abreu is standing by with the forecast, but I want to start with Maggie Vespa, who's in Chicago for us. Maggie, what's the expectation here as night falls and as the storm threat intensifies?
Yeah, Hallie, for sure. We're not expecting really any major activity until you're right. Night falls, it gets dark out, and it's really kind of the Chicago suburbs and southern Wisconsin that find themselves in the crosshairs once again. But with the conditions today are almost kind of misleading. We've heard people saying, like, it's so nice outside. Wasn't there supposed to be severe weather? It's coming. And part of the reason it's coming is because of this massive temperature swing that we've seen in the Chicago area. It's in the 70s today. It was in the 50s over the weekend. What we're seeing farther west, a bit of a preview. Out in Kansas, I mean, you saw it. The video is insane. Dozens of homes, dozens of businesses torn to shreds. A sheriff in the area saying 3 people sustained minor injuries, and we're thankful those are only minor. We're watching kind of the injury reports as they continue to sift through that damage. But those were massive storms and tornadoes. 15 reported tornadoes really across the plains into the Midwest. And at last check, 6 of them have now been confirmed. Really, Kansas and Iowa getting hit the hardest. Southern Wisconsin, also a lot of damage. A lot of trees down there, a lot of power lines, power outages in that state right now. Still a major issue. 17,000 plus customers without power at this point. And once again, they could see around 2 tonight. And then you go to Michigan. Our team is watching this really closely. Possible flooding there because of a dam in Sheboygan, Michigan that is really close to overflowing, like 7 inches from overflowing, and it rose just 6 in the last 24 hours, Hallie. So again, just kind of this patchwork of incredibly intense, messy weather across a huge swath of the country.
Maggie Vespa live for us there in Chicago. Much to watch, Maggie, as the night continues there. Thank you very much. Let me bring in meteorologist Larissa Abreu from our NBC station in Miami. You heard Maggie lay out sort of the landscape, the expectations here. Give us the sort of meteorological standpoint from all of this about the forecast over the next couple of days, because this is going to stretch.
Yes, several days of unsettled weather. And for tonight, I do want to emphasize that this is shaping up to be a pretty dangerous situation because the threat will continue through the evening hours and continue through tonight. Here's some of the main concerns we're going to be watching. 64 million people at risk to see strong tornadoes possible. Damaging hail also going to be a possibility in addition to strong winds. Now we move on to tomorrow, where we're still going to be dealing with very unsettled weather. Not only across the Midwest, but notice how this extends into the southern plains as well. And then back towards the East Coast, places like Pittsburgh, all the way east into northern portions of New Jersey, all under day number 2 of what could be dangerous weather, with some of the same impacts from damaging hail to strong wind gusts and even the possibility of a few tornadoes. Now you add that to the threat for flooding, because a lot of rain is going to fall in a short amount of time. And you could see the reds and the yellows indicating that we could be picking up anywhere between 3 to, in some spots, up to 5 inches of rain from Detroit to Chicago out towards Lafayette. It's just going to be several days of unsettled weather.
Larissa Abreu, glad to have you with us. Thank you very much for the forecast. Overseas tonight, we are learning a new round of in-person peace talks between the U.S. and Iran could kick back up maybe early this week, in the next couple of days here, according to 2 people familiar with the negotiations. But tensions are still really high in the region. The U.S. says today the partial blockade turned around 6 ships leaving the Strait of Hormuz already, that blockade of Iranian ports, with more than 10,000 troops in place to keep that blockade up. A blockade that China doesn't like. They're calling it dangerous and irresponsible. We've got team coverage. Courtney Kuby is standing by, but I want to start with Keir Simmons, who is live for us on the ground in the region in Saudi Arabia. And Keir, we know that more talks are a possibility, right? Like, this is what I think the president, I believe, told the New York Post. We know from officials on this. What does that look like, right? Like, how does that restart? Is there any optimism about that? And then what do you make of the China criticism of the blockade, too?
So I think it looks like very, very difficult negotiations, honestly. Last weekend, I don't think the Iranian side and the US side were really even on the same page about what kinds of talks they were going to be engaging in. I think that the team, the Trump administration team, Vice President Vance, were expecting to be there for the day. In the end, they were there for a day and night. And in the end, there were many, many roadblocks, right? I mean, there was the question of the Iranian nuclear program, Hallie. That's one part of it. There's Hormuz, which you're going to talk to Courtney about in a moment. There's also the proxies in like Hezbollah and Hamas and in Yemen. And just that one question of the proxies, those negotiations that we've been seeing today over Lebanon, that's just trying to solve that part. And you bet that the Iranians will not like what they're hearing, which is that the idea is that Hezbollah should not be involved. So I think it's in Lebanese politics. So I mean, I think there are so many issues here. Positive side, I think both sides would like to not go back to war, even though they are both beating their chests.
Interesting. Keir Simmons live for us in the region. Thank you. Court, let me go to you on some of this here. Let's talk blockade, the one that China calls dangerous and irresponsible, I think the language was here, and the footprint, the military footprint that's needed to enforce this.
It's huge. And I mean, the U.S. has more than a dozen ships there. They've got the more than 10,000 people who are dedicated just to this at sea and on land. They also have more than 100 aircraft. So basically the way that this works is they have these radars that are on the Navy ships, and then they have surveillance aircraft. They see a ship that is maybe in an Iranian port that's heading its way through the Strait of Hormuz. They're letting it go through the strait, and then as it gets around, they communicate with it on a radio and say, hey, you're violating this blockade. You got to turn around or go into a port in the Gulf of Oman, but in the Iranian side of the Gulf of Oman. So far, there have been 6 ships that have listened to them and have complied.
That turned around or rerouted when asked.
Exactly.
Okay.
They've gone through. They've gone into an Iranian port. 5 of those ships had oil on them. One of them, it's not really clear what it was, and we don't know where they were heading exactly. But they were in violation of what the U.S. has laid out as this blockade. So at this point, no shots fired, no boardings, nothing like that. They have everything they need there, and they have the full authority to do so if, in fact, it happens. But at this point, it seems to be working without any kind of violent interactions.
Are the Iranians making any noise to try to test and pressure test the limits of this blockade?
Not yet. And I asked if we've seen anything like drones or any kind of missiles or any of their fast boats going out, any kind of their unmanned little boats. So far, there have been no provocations, according to the officials we're asking.
Okay, Courtney Cubie on the beat, depending on their court. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's take it to the West now, where a former California congressman is officially resigning today in the face of sexual misconduct allegations against him. Eric Swalwell, Democrat, of course, stepping down today, just this afternoon, in a move that would avoid a potential vote to have expelled him. So he basically left before they could kick him out. It's coming after a new accuser has now come forward with serious allegations against him, saying he drugged and assaulted her in 2018. Listen.
He raped me, and he choked me. And while he was choking me, I lost consciousness. And I thought I died.
An attorney for the woman that you see there says they filed a criminal report against Swalwell in Los Angeles. Swalwell also faces a separate sex assault investigation in New York. Now, Swalwell has acknowledged making what he calls mistakes in judgment, but he denies the sexual assault allegations against him. His attorney, in a statement late today, says these accusations are false, fabricated, and deeply offensive, calling them a calculated and transparent political hit job to destroy the reputation of somebody who spent 20 years in public service. Julie Sirkin is standing by here in Washington, but I want to start with Camila Bernal in Los Angeles. And to be clear here, Camila, the new Swalwell accuser has reported this to Los Angeles and the district attorney. They have not yet officially opened an investigation so far as we know, right?
Yeah, so as far as we know, and we got confirmation, she did go to the sheriff's department, filed a report. The attorney confirming that this report has been filed, but it's unclear exactly what will unfold from here. But the DA did release a statement saying they've already essentially assigned their sex crimes division to work with law enforcement if this develops. The rest of his statement says, when and if the case is presented, seasoned prosecutors will review the facts and evidence to determine whether there is sufficient evidence for charges to be filed. Because the important thing here is that this accuser wants a criminal prosecution. She says that that is the goal, that is how they believe they would get accountability for the things that she is accusing him of. And she said, look, I did not come forward for a long time because I was scared. And she described essentially what she went through and why she didn't come forward sooner. Take a listen.
My delay in taking action against Eric was driven by fear, not doubt. Fear of his political power, his background as an attorney, and his family law enforcement ties.
And when I sat down with her attorney, what the attorney told me was that there's part of the reason why she came forward is because she felt that Eric Swalwell, in his statements, was essentially minimizing some of the claims that were made by multiple women. And so that's what essentially motivated her to come forward. She today obviously described these very explicit allegations, very disturbing allegations of being drugged and raped to the point where she thought she died because she basically passed out. And she detailed all of this in front of reporters because she says she wants other people to also see this and possibly come forward. Her attorney even saying that she already had 3 other women reach out to her about allegations. Of course, we don't know what the motive or what the details of these allegations are, but part of the reason why this accuser came forward is also to just share her story and possibly help others who might have gone through the same thing, Hallie.
Camila Bernal, thank you very much for that. Let me go to the Hill now, where Julie is standing by. And we are hearing from other lawmakers now, right, as this has now unfolded, this question around who knew what when as it related to these allegations against Swalwell, which, of course, as we've laid out, he denies.
Yeah, absolutely, Hallie. That is kind of the next piece of this, not only when it comes to Swalwell, but when it comes to Tony Gonzalez, other instances that are sort of an open secret, perhaps, among lawmakers themselves of their colleagues engaging in inappropriate behavior, in flirtatious behavior, and certainly in behavior that Eric Swalwell is being accused of here, of very serious sexual assault allegations. I asked Senator Ruben Gallego specifically about this. They have been such close friends for a long time. Gallego served in the House with him for years before he came to the Senate. And I asked Gallego if he thinks this would rub off poorly on his own political ambitions. Take a listen and we'll talk about it on the other side.
How can people trust you to run for higher office if you didn't know that your best friend was engaging in even inappropriate behavior?
Look, I messed up. I'm human. I trusted this man. I trusted him to watch my children. I would watch his children. He knew that I had just gone through the most bruising campaign.
Now, the reason Gallego spent 35 minutes addressing reporters is not just by accident, right? There have been all these rumors circulating online about Gallego possibly knowing something, possibly being involved or at least out with Swalwell when some of these things were taking place. I asked him point blank if he's ever engaged in any inappropriate conduct outside of his marriage, whether it's with a staffer or someone else, and he said no, and he never even knew that Swalwell was engaging in any inappropriate behavior either.
And Julie, just a quick check here. Swalwell resigning, Tony Gonzalez leaving Congress as well. Doesn't balance of power kind of stays the same then, right?
Yeah, it's essentially status quo. They cancel each other out. This was a big concern for House Republican leadership when the Gonzalez matter really came to light. Horrific allegations in that case, too. Speaker Johnson came out and said he should not seek re-election. It was a really profound statement, but he stopped short of saying that he should retire from Congress now, resign from Congress at this moment, because it would affect their margins. Now you have Swalwell, and now you have Gonzalez. So basically canceling them out, giving Republicans that same slim margin that they've had all along. But again, this does not mean that the effort to investigate his behavior or Gonzalez's behavior, Swalwell or Gonzalez's, is over, or those efforts to potentially expel other members who have been engaging in inappropriate behavior, whether it is sexual or financial. We'll see more of that come to light, I expect, in the coming days and weeks, Hallie.
Julie Sirkin, thank you very much for that. Also tonight, the acting Attorney General acknowledging in a one-on-one with our Laura Jarrett that his department messed up when personal identifying details of some of the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse were made public in the release of millions of documents related to Epstein. Todd Blanche, you see him there, also not ruling out future prosecutions related to it, but he says essentially they just don't have a case at the moment. Listen.
The department obviously came under a fair amount of scrutiny for all of the redactions. Do you have a message to any of the survivors whose information was wrongly revealed?
Yes, it's horrible that happened. It's horrible and it's inexcusable, but I want to make sure folks understand what happened. What happened was we had an ongoing dialogue with victims, their lawyers, their families, and any other active advocacy groups to help us identify any mistakes that we made. So less than 1% of the documents had errors. And by the way, inexcusable, okay? But we were on the clock. As a matter of fact, we were criticized by the same congressman who now complain that we didn't redact properly. We were criticized for not doing that work quickly enough. You're talking about working through 6 million pieces of paper. They did a great job, and they made mistakes. And every mistake that they made, we tried to fix within a day or two. We reviewed it, fixed it, and put it back up. But that's why normally you don't release files, because this is what can happen. Normally the American public, they don't get to see grand jury files, grand jury investigative files, because there is so much victim information, especially in these types of cases. But the Transparency Act was passed, we did it, and it's the right thing to do. I support it. But one unfortunate consequence was that we did make mistakes.
Remember, the handling of the Epstein investigation is something the Justice Department has been heavily criticized for. You see Blanche's predecessor there, Pam Bondi. She was in this hearing, survivors behind her. She was fired by President Trump, in part, because of the Epstein case, according to our NBC reporting. Just last week, we saw a group of survivors file a lawsuit against the Trump administration and Google over the disclosure of their personal info in the files. Laura is joining us now off that interview. It's so interesting to hear Blanche very directly sort of be asked and respond to the next steps for the Department of Justice on the Epstein case here.
Yeah, and Hallie, he's basically said the case is not closed because I think the public perception is they've produced all these documents and there's nothing more to come here, no prosecution, no accountability. But we did discuss one person who has been held accountable, the co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, someone you've done a ton of reporting on, Hallie. And I asked him in particular, given that essentially all of her legal roads have run out, she doesn't have a Supreme Court case, they didn't want to take it up. So essentially her only option is a pardon. Take a listen to what he says about that.
I have no reason to believe the president is considering a pardon for Ms. Maxwell, never have. And I did sit down and meet with her.
You found her believable?
You can't find somebody credible by meeting with them once. I mean, the way that you do this is we would need to spend a lot of time pressure testing every one of her answers and understanding why she answered things a certain way.
It sounds like, though, if the president said over dinner, hey, what do you think about this? You would say, no, don't do that.
Well, I think that that's not necessarily true that I would just cold out say don't do this or do this. I think there's more work to do when it comes to Ms. Maxwell if we really want to understand everything that she knows.
You see there, Hallie, sort of how he's capturing his views on the entire case. But remember, he is the one who sat down with her. He is the one that interviewed her. He is the one who has at least had the most interaction with her. And I also pressed him about why she was moved, another subject, obviously, of a lot of public scrutiny, Hallie. And he continues to maintain it was for her safety.
You also really drilled down with him. I mean, because that was also interesting as she's sitting in this sort of what's called a prison camp. Survivors furious that she's still there. You got into it with him on like who's really in charge here, right? Because we know that the president has leaned on his Department of Justice to try to do some of these prosecutions that he wants.
Well, he's made no secret about it, and now his face is on an enormous banner outside of the Justice Department. And so I asked, who is really driving this train? Take a look. Is the president calling the shots, or is the acting attorney general calling the shots at headquarters?
Well, I suppose I would ask you to define calling the shots, because the president is we can read Article 2 together of the Constitution. It puts the power of the executive in one man, and that's the president of the United States. So he is my boss, and every president is the attorney general's boss from the time the Constitution was enacted and the time that an attorney general was selected. And so who is calling the shots? I mean, I think everybody in this country knows and has known for 250 years that the president of the United States, when it comes to the executive, calls the shots. And any idea that there's a cabinet secretary out there, whether it's the attorney general or the secretary of state or the secretary of war or commerce, that gets to, quote, call the shots, they have not read Article 2.
Hallie, I think it's a revealing answer, not only because is he the acting attorney general right now, but given his past relationship with the president as his personal defense attorney, to sort of see what is his view, given that he very may well occupy that final job as the AG. I think it gives a sense of where his head is at right now, Hallie.
Laura, Jared, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. We'll look for more of your reporting, I know, on our platforms. Thanks. When we come back, a top ally to President Trump calling his comments about the Pope disrespectful, how the president's clapping back tonight, then how a $100 raffle ticket won one person an OG Picasso and raised millions more for charity. That's next. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the woman known as Baby Jessica, now accused of assault after an alleged domestic disturbance at her home. She made national headlines after paramedics rescued her from a 22-foot well 40 years ago. She's now out on bond and faces a felony charge. Number 2, President Trump telling an Italian magazine now he is shocked that the Italian prime minister pushed back on his comments about the Pope. Giorgia Meloni said the president's anger at the Pope's anti-war remarks were unacceptable. The president said he thought Meloni had courage, but was wrong. For his part, the Pope has not weighed in today as he prepares for the most politically charged leg of his trip to Africa, although we did hear from him yesterday. Number 3, look at the surveillance video. High school principal in Oklahoma taking down a gunman. Suspect here firing a shot in the school's lobby. That's when the principal jumps out, pins him down. Incredibly, nobody was hurt, and that suspect now faces multiple charges. Number 4, take a look. Massive pileup shutting down a highway in Colorado. 75 cars involved here. Very scary. We're still waiting on word of any injuries. Police are also looking into why this pileup was triggered in the first place. Number 5, huge win for an engineer in Paris. An original Picasso. He won this $1 million painting by paying about $100 to a charity raffle. That raffle raised $11 million for Alzheimer's research. Organizers say the winner was so shocked by the news that he asked him, "How do I check that this is not a hoax?" It was real. Good for him. Taken to the Bahamas now, where the military there says it'll call off the search for the American mom who went missing there sometime in the next 48 hours. Officials say they've been, in their words, unsuccessful so far looking for Lynette Hooker. Her husband, Brian, says she fell overboard while boating in the Bahamas over Easter weekend. Police have been holding Brian Hooker in custody to ask him questions. They released him last night, but today he's sitting down with our Jesse Kirsch.
Did police ever explicitly ask you if you hurt your wife?
Of course.
What did you say to them?
I said I've never harmed Lynette, and I never would harm Lynette, and I want to find Lynette.
Jesse Kirsch is on the ground for us in the Bahamas. Jesse, tell us more about this conversation and what happens after 48 hours from now.
Yeah, so within the next couple of days, the military, Hallie, tells me that they are going to likely be suspending their search efforts here in the Bahamas. To be clear, that does not mean that the police would stop searching. And we know from my conversation with the police commissioner yesterday that she says they plan on searching for as long as possible. And she says they are still hopeful that they can find Lynette Hooker. But it just speaks to the fact that this has been going on for well over a week now. And the police telling me that really the only piece of hard evidence of anything they've come up with is a flotation device. And the part of the lack of hard evidence you can imagine would have led to them releasing Brian Hooker, not charging him. But the police say he is still a suspect. As for my conversation with him, because this is an ongoing investigation, his attorney advised him against going into the specifics of what he says happened on Easter weekend. But we did talk about his relationship with his wife in the years past. We talked a little bit, as much as he would go into, about what happened then. And we also, as you just heard, talked to him about what his conversations with police have been. Here's part of my conversation with Brian Hooker.
I don't think I've ever been apart from her in 25 years for this long. I don't like it. She wouldn't stop, and I'm not going to stop.
And you see Mr. Hooker becoming increasingly emotional there. That is where our interview wrapped up, Hallie. But again, we talked about any number of things. As you played there, if police asked him if he hurt his wife, I asked him about their marriage and reports that there was some volatility there. Any number of things. We're going to continue to report this out, of course, across all of our NBC News platforms. Hallie.
Jesse Kirsch live for us there in Freeport. Jesse, thank you very much. Coming up, is there a mega merger on the horizon between two of the biggest airlines in the world? A reality check for you right after the break. Plus, what it took to save this cat from the tracks of a busy train line. That's next. So you may have heard about this, this idea. If you fly, if you travel, it's probably been in your algorithm over the last 16 hours or so. The United CEO reportedly mentioning the idea of merging with American Airlines to Trump administration officials. United and American coming together. Really? Maybe not really. Here's the deal. Bloomberg News reports that the CEO, Scott Kirby, floated this back in February, according to people familiar with these conversations. To be clear here, we've got no information at the moment that the two airlines are in talks. So this is just what it is. Both airlines aren't commenting. We're out to the White House and haven't heard back yet. But a move like this, if it were to happen, big if, could face roadblocks from regulators, from unions, could cost you more, et cetera. Tom Costello is following it all. Do you know what's so interesting here is this may totally be a non-story. And we don't usually bring you on. Normally, we're looking through the rundown and we'd cross you off and say, we'll make time for another story. Let Tom
cross
get on
me
with
off.
Very rarely, but it happens. But in this instance, we thought it was kind of important. This is kind of everywhere. This headline rocketed around the internet. We need the reality check. Okay. We have no word that they're actually planning
Correct.
or pushing for a merger.
Correct.
Right?
I got to tell you, I think it's one of those headlines that went rogue.
Interesting.
Kind of like Sarah Palin. It went rogue. Saturday Night Live's version of Sarah Palin, right? It came out that Scott Kirby, who was the CEO, is the CEO, of course, of United Airlines. According to Reuters and Bloomberg, he was having a conversation with the president in which he said, raised the possibility of, what about us merging with American? We are led to believe kind of a casual conversation.
Okay. But wait a second. Does the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company ever do anything casually?
Well, I think if you're in the White House and you are thinking, I wonder if he would block a merger. I wonder if DOJ would block a merger. And before we spend a whole bunch of money with lawyers and bankers trying to make that happen, maybe we should get a reality check.
Yeah.
So we don't know where that conversation went. We have no idea. By the way, within a few days, the war had started with Iran. We have zero evidence that American and United are actually merging. But here are the numbers here. By the way, you may be surprised. American is actually the biggest carrier in the country right now. So a combined, American is in terms of passengers, it is. So if we look now here at the revenue here, right, we'd be talking about $114 billion if these two combined. Separately, look down there. United has about, what is that, $59 billion in revenue. American has about 55, almost $59 billion in revenue. But here's the big caveat. American is loaded with debt, just loaded up. United is doing much better. Their stock price is in much better shape than Americans. So the question really becomes, is there room, is it time for any sort of merger activity in the airline industry? And then what about a mega merger? Here's the Secretary of Transportation last week talking to CNBC.
Is there room for some mergers in the aviation industry? Yeah, I think there is. What impact does it have on competition? What is it going to do for the consumer and the pricing of the consumer? What does it do for us to be competitive globally?
And Duffy went on to say, listen, a big merger is going to bring big questions about what would happen to airline pricing, what would happen in these key markets where this would create just a monolithic airline, right? Newark and LaGuardia and Chicago and Miami and Dallas and L.A., right? They would have just a chokehold on those markets. So would they have to divest some of their assets, some of their planes, some of their routes? Listen, that's all pie in the sky at the moment because to our knowledge, there is no conversation between these two.
So interesting, but also so hypothetical.
I think that's the bottom line. Okay. I would not be worried about your airline points yet.
Cool. Tom Costello, then I won't if you say so. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Also tonight, let's take it to the West because we've got some developing news here. The man accused of trying to kill one of the biggest names in tech. Right, Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI. Remember the Molotov cocktail situation? That suspect is now being apparently held without bail after not entering a plea during his arraignment in just the last hour, according to the Associated Press. The suspect is accused of throwing that Molotov cocktail at the house of Altman in San Francisco on Friday. You see the pictures here, the moment that he allegedly hurls it right at the gate. It's like that, the circle at the top. You're going to see it now. It's next to the gate. You see the flames. Suspects, the police say that he also went to OpenAI's headquarters. Prosecutors say he wanted to set that building on fire. According to court documents, the suspect had written things about being anti-AI. He's now facing state and federal charges. That's after there was a separate attack on Altman's home over the weekend, a possible shooting, according to the police. Doesn't seem like the two things are related, so Molotov cocktail situation separate from the shooting situation, but all of it obviously putting OpenAI and Altman on edge. Morgan Chesky is joining us for more on this. Altman had responded, right? I mean, he put out a picture of his family. He basically is trying to make this personal plea saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, whatever you think of AI, don't take it out on my family.
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. We heard from Sam Altman. He put out that photo with he and his young child there, trying to humanize himself, his family. And we also heard that same sentiment expressed by the district attorney in San Francisco, saying regardless of your personal feelings towards AI, towards the growth of that industry, certainly an act of violence, the way in which we saw it carried out on Friday by this individual who's now been taken into custody and charged, is certainly off limits in every aspect of the word. Now, we do know, according to the AP, Hallie, as you mentioned, that Daniel Moreno-Gama, this 20-year-old Texas man, was in a courtroom just a short time ago. We're hearing from his public defender. The AP is reporting that he's saying that his client was suffering from a mental health episode and has been, quote, overcharged. He has a direct quote I'd like to share with you here that just came in within the last few minutes, saying that it's unfair and unjust for for the San Francisco District Attorney and the federal government to fearmonger and to exploit the mental illness of a vulnerable young man by turning a vandalism case into an attempted murder, life exposure case to gain support of a billionaire, and to get political points at the expense of true justice for everyone involved. We do know, Hallie, according to investigators, that they recovered multiple pages of a document that they believe was written by the suspect, Moreno Gamma, in which he expressed extreme displeasure with multiple aspects of artificial intelligence. And he also had listed the names of some top execs at AI companies. That's just part of the investigation being built against this 20-year-old man that authorities say drove from his home in Spring, Texas, a suburb of Houston, all the way to California to carry this out. Hallie?
Morgan Chesky watching all of it for us from there in L.A. Morgan, thank you very much. Also tonight, one suspect is dead. A child is recovering after a very scary incident at a Walmart in Nebraska, where police say somebody tried to kidnap a toddler at knife point. Investigators are still trying to piece together what happened here, but they say officers approached the suspect outside the store. She had a knife. They said drop the knife, and that is when they say she slashed this 3-year-old across the face. At least one officer then opened fire. Fortunately, that little boy, that 3-year-old, is expected to be okay. Kathy Park is covering this. She's joining us for more. How did this happen? Do we know any other details?
Hey there, Hallie. Yeah, this is just a troubling story. It's an incident that happened early this morning, shortly after 9 a.m. local time. And according to police, that child and a caretaker were inside the store at the time when, according to authorities, the pair, they were approached by this woman. And according to police, there is apparently no sort of relationship between the pair, the caretaker, the child, and the stranger who essentially approached them, pulled out a large knife, and then essentially had the child pointed, the knife pointed at the child, and the suspect, the woman, told the pair to go outside. And according to authorities, shortly after that, after they went outside, apparently there's video of this suspect, this woman, slashing this child across the face. It didn't take long before authorities arrived on the scene, and essentially at least one officer fired their weapon and killed the suspect near the grounds of that Walmart store in Nebraska. Still so many questions, Hallie. Right now, the suspect's identity, this woman's identity, has not yet been released. We don't really know the relationship between this woman and the caretaker and the child, but really a really scary moment. Officer-involved shooting, and one person is dead. But the good news is, out of all of this, that young boy, that 3-year-old, aside from that injury, we do know, according to authorities, that he is expected to recover. Hallie?
Kathy Park, thank you very much for the update. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day. And because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going on in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our southern bureau, Florida officials want people near Naples to get out ASAP. Look at this huge wildfire down there. It's burning like 1,500 acres. Right now, it's pretty contained to a state park, so there's no reports of anybody being hurt, but they want to take every precaution here. Officials have said it's getting windy, and that could push it into places where people actually live, where there's houses. Out of our Northeast Bureau, take a look here. Police on Long Island rescuing a cat from the train tracks. It was stuck. It somehow crawled between like an electrified part of the track. You see it there. Officials had to cut the power to pull him out. Garfield, that's the cat, is now safe and sound and recovering at a local shelter. That's good news. And out of our D.C. Bureau, life imitating art after the winners. So there's like a heated rivalry lookalike contest. The winners, Shane and Ilya, like the people who look like, they're now dating in real life, they say. That is just, we'd love to see it. They're not putting a label on it yet, but they told our team they're still getting to know each other, but both of them, these winners, are having a good time. Perhaps a la Shane and Ilya on the show. We'll see. Little everything here on the show. Coming up, though, our newsmaker is joining us, the New Mexico Attorney General, after his win in a landmark phase 1 of a trial against Meta. What he now wants the parent company of Facebook and Instagram to do now. That's next. So New Mexico's landmark legal fight with Meta is not over yet. Both sides will be back in court in about 3 weeks for phase 2 of that social media trial, after a jury decided last month that Meta misled users about the safety of its platforms and enabled child sexual exploitation. They ordered Meta to pay $375 million in civil penalties. Now, Meta says it previously said they respectfully disagree with the verdict. They do plan to appeal. But this next phase now is focused on the potential that Meta takes some action here. A judge shot down Meta's push to delay the trial. We've just heard from a company spokesperson about that. In a statement, they say the state is asking for big changes that could affect all New Mexican parents and teens, including their ability to access our platforms for important information and connection. They say our ask was nothing more than a reasonable request to take the time to get this right. New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres is joining us now. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for being here with us on set here in Washington. I know far from home, but you've had a series of meetings today with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, right?
Yeah, the verdict we just had in our case against Meta, $375 million judgment, has really galvanized, I think, attention on Capitol Hill around what needs to happen to better protect kids online.
Let's talk about what needs to happen, because Meta's now got to pay a settlement, but there's also this injunction, and this is coming up in just a couple of weeks in early May. Talk us through that.
Yeah, we have the second half of our trial. A lot of people thought that the case was over. It's actually not over. That part of the trial will be focused on the public nuisance claim that we have. We'll be making an additional argument to the court about the need for more money to remediate the harm that this company has caused for New Mexico's children. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about specific changes to the platform.
Let's talk about those specific changes. Things like new regulations banning addictive features, limiting screen time, the idea of kids' accounts have to go private by default, blocking adults from messaging minors that they're not connected to. What is the enforcement mechanism for some of these things as you look ahead moving forward for the impact that this could have?
Well, ultimately, like any other company, they are subject to the jurisdiction of the court. They do business in New Mexico, and the court is going to have the opportunity to order real age verification, as you said, changes to the algorithm, and potentially the independent monitor that we've asked for, somebody who can come in and ensure compliance with all of these structural changes that we think are necessary to better protect children.
And you think that this could actually have more of an impact, this second part of the trial, than the financial piece of it, right? On Meta specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. This goes to the heart of the way that they do business. It disrupts the motivation that they've had to place profits ahead of safety. It gives the court the opportunity to step in and try to enact some of those common sense reforms that, frankly, the company should have enacted long ago. They were listening to their engagement team. They were listening to people who were relentlessly focused on growing the user base. They should have been focused on safety first. And this is an opportunity to correct that and to have a court really bring in outside experts to drive fundamental change in that space.
Meta would argue, as you know, that they have made changes to try to make the platform safer for specifically kids and teens. I wonder how you see, when you talk about accountability, when you think about that, the role of parents in this process, too, when it comes to their kids being online.
Well, we have never made the claim that parents don't bear responsibility. They do. They need to be aware of the harm. But it's hard for parents to make an informed decision when you have a company who spends as much time and as much money as Meta does trying to cover up the truth, trying to mislead people about the safety of their products. And so everyone has a responsibility, but the responsibility starts with the people who build this product and put it into the marketplace.
So look ahead now to early May when this kicks off, when this second piece goes into effect. Yeah. When you're walking out, when that part is done, what do you hope has happened? What is a victory to you beyond simply the legal victory?
Well, the victory that we are looking for is a clear and unambiguous signal from the court that change will come to the platform, that the experience that our kids in New Mexico will have on this platform will be fundamentally different. And I think that will have a cascading effect, because if we are able to build a safer platform for our kids, that's something that will translate and could translate across the country and around the world.
So talk to me about that. Have you had conversations with your counterparts in other states? What do those conversations look like?
We have over 40 AGs, Republicans and Democrats, who have filed similar actions. They are all very interested in how the trial unfolded, the evidence that was presented, some of the arguments that were made. But there is a shared commitment, and I think a renewed sense of energy that we can finally bring about change through the court system. Now, that doesn't take the burden off of Congress to take action. We've had legislation stalled here for a number of years, and my hope is that what we're having in terms of messages delivered by juries and everyday citizens will actually translate into legislative action.
Before I let you go here, I know that you're also investigating an issue that we've covered quite a bit on this show, and that is the investigation into Zora Ranch, what used to be known as that, Jeffrey Epstein. You've asked the Department of Justice for the unredacted files, the unredacted documents, in order to help you pursue your potentially criminal investigation. Have you received those yet? And do you think you're getting the level of cooperation from the feds that you want to see?
We've been engaged with the Department of Justice about access to the files. At this point, we're still working through that process. We haven't seen the files yet, but we are working through a normal process. And my hope is that as a law enforcement agency reaching out to another law enforcement agency, that we get, full and cooperation at this point. It's a little early to see, but we remain hopeful that we'll gain access to all the information because we need that access in order for us to conduct our own investigation.
And what's your sense of a timeline on your investigation? Any idea?
It's going to be very complicated and very time consuming. As you know, this happened so long ago, and there has been a lost opportunity to a certain extent with victims' access to witness statements and the like. But we are going to do everything we can to get to the bottom of what happened there, follow every lead, no matter how uncomfortable it is or how long it takes. And most importantly, we need to center the voices of victims in this process. We need to create an opportunity for victims who have not felt safe and comfortable to step forward and talk to us. I want people to know, anyone who is impacted by these crimes, that we want to hear from them, we want to talk to them, and without them, we can't move this thing forward.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us on your trip here to Washington. I know you have much more ahead of you as well.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Still to come, some of the new alarm bells being sounded about how much it might cost to get to the World Cup matches this summer, let alone watch them from the stands. Our Stephen Romo's posted up with commuters in New York City. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Hallie, yeah, a lot of people not liking that reporting out today about how much a train ticket could cost during the World Cup to get here to Penn Station. And that's not the only change that could be on the horizon for commuters. We'll tell you what else is getting them heated coming up.
We are just a couple of months now from the World Cup kicking off all across North America. We've been telling you about, ticket prices. People are like, what the heck? They're really expensive. But now there's an extra cost that could end up making it even more, perhaps, a bitter pill to swallow. According to The Athletic, the Jersey train service is planning to charge more than $100 a ticket to go from New York City to MetLife Stadium for the games. And if you're like that feels expensive. That's 7 times more than what it usually costs to get there. In just the last few hours, the governor of New York said the World Cup should be as affordable and accessible as possible. Charging more than $100 for a short train ride sounds awfully high to me. That's not happening on the MTA. But the World Cup host committee for New York and New Jersey tells us prices for match day travel haven't been finalized yet. So maybe they won't be that expensive. But it's still not the only New Jersey transit concern over the summer. The influx of fans could block reportedly regular commuters from Penn Station, which is the country's busiest transportation hub. Other cities are laying out their plans. Boston's going to raise mass transit prices to as much as $95 for people to get to games there. Listen, people love soccer. Do people love shelling out this kind of money just to go see soccer? Stephen Romo is at Penn Station for us. This isn't just like a New Jersey, New York kind of thing, right? Necessarily. But for people there, they're already kind of annoyed by the whole thing, even if it doesn't happen.
Oh. Hallie, oh my gosh, that is an understatement. A lot of opinions on this, as you can imagine. People not thrilled hearing that price tag. They're also not thrilled hearing that daily commuters could be blocked from Penn Station during the World Cup, which will last 6 weeks, starting in mid-June. So that has a lot of concern, even though it's not been finalized. Just that initial reporting has a lot of people upset over this. And we can take a look at the numbers here. New Jersey Transit saying it expects to transport 40,000 people to and from those 8 matches in New Jersey, including the final. And that is to clear security checkpoints at the station. The fans will also have to hold special train tickets produced just for the World Cup so that they will be allowed to go at a particular time to Penn Station. As for those $100 ticket prices, well, reported by The Athletic, we did get a response from New Jersey Transit about this. They said in a statement that ticket prices for match day travel have not been finalized. However, as the governor has clearly stated, the cost for the 8 matches will not be borne by our regular commuters. We can confirm that the overall cost of the agency is approximately $48 million for those 8 matches. So quite a bit of money there, making the case that these higher costs will help offset that amount. But the riders we spoke to, they seem to hate the idea of pretty much all of this. Those price tags for what they normally pay about $12 for, and also for the likely inconvenience that this could cause. Here's what they had to say.
We're used to prices going up pretty consistently, but that's just such a huge jump. That's just unbelievable.
Do you think people will still pay it?
I think they're going to try and not pay it.
I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, I feel like, it's going to hinder people from getting there. People that can't afford it aren't going to be able to make it.
Now, it's tough because you need a rideshare or a train to make it out to actually watch these matches. And as you heard it there, some people saying they're not going to pay it. We'll see if this ends up getting finalized and how they plan to make it there.
It's so interesting, too, Stephen, because it's not just, it's New York. We talked about Boston. The World Cup's being played. It's a huge, huge America's event, North America event. And there's other cities that are going to have to navigate this, too.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing Boston. You mentioned the $95 price tag for Boston getting in, and New York Governor Hochul saying that MTA won't be doing that. But I was interested in seeing Senator Chuck Schumer calling on FIFA to cover these transportation costs for all host cities and states affected. Not heard a response yet of that from FIFA, but we'll see if that ends up happening, Hallie.
Stephen Romo, much to watch. Thank you very much for being at Penn Station for us. Appreciate that. That does it for us for this hour, but we've got more coverage picking up right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.